All right, welcome back to the Food Forest, everybody. Today we're actually going to talk about what is permaculture. It's kind of a bit odd that I have a 2.5-year-old YouTube channel on permaculture with permaculture in the name of the channel, and I've never actually done a video to describe what permaculture actually is. Now, one of the reasons I've done that is because I kind of think of permaculture as a label that we've put on something that's existed for a really long time. Now, there's a lot of definitions for permaculture. The one you've probably heard the most is that it's a design science. It's a way that we design the way that we grow food. At least that's kind of how it initially started. It was all about how we grow food. And it's really snowballed bigger than that since then. It's really become about lifestyle design, how we design our entire lives, and even bigger than that possibly, how we design humanity in order to live sustainably on this planet. Now, Jeff Lawton actually defined permaculture as sedition, which now that is a definition I can get behind. It's pretty clear now that the path we're on is the path we're going to stay on unless the average person revolts and demands change. And the best way we can demand change is by starting it right at our own home. And in fact, a populace that grows its own food and doesn't depend on anybody for its continued survival is a very difficult populace to control. So this is why permaculture and self-sufficiency and homesteading, to me, go hand in hand. They're one and the same. For most of industrial food production, sustainability is that golden target that everyone's striving for. For permaculture, sustainability is really the bare minimum threshold in order to call something a permaculture setup. Permaculture pushes beyond sustainability towards regeneration. Because what's the point of sustaining a devastated planet? We really need to move past sustainability into regeneration. At its highest level, permaculture has a set of goals: people care, earth care, and fair share. And it's inside these core main ethics that the entirety of permaculture is bound. Because what's the point of doing something if you don't have an ethical and moral compass guiding your actions and choices? What does that mean for our gardens, and what does that mean for our lives if we choose to bring permaculture into the way that we live? One of the biggest ways that your garden is going to look different in a permaculture setup versus a traditional gardening setup is that permaculture really looks towards what nature does to grow things, and then we replicate that. Traditional gardening kind of looks towards technology, machines, and chemistry in order to find ways that the human can take gardening to the next level. Human technology is just simply not at the point where we can surpass the intricacies of billions of symbiotic relationships in nature. So while a traditional garden might look towards chemical fertilizers in order to support its plants, a permaculture garden allows nature's nutrient cycling to create much more abundance than is possible with just simple NPK fertilizers. So a permaculture food forest is really focused on how do we maximize the soil food web of life. Now, I have a video called "This Will Change How You Garden Forever." I definitely suggest you check that out. It talks about the main ways that a permaculture food forest garden will take your garden to the next level. Now, the good news with all of this is that in nature, there aren't humans walking around keeping everything going. So a traditional gardener might start and fail constantly and feel like gardening is a lot of work. So a permaculture garden is going to be more about managing natural organic inputs to gardening, whether that's growing plants that provide fertility back into the soils via stuff like nitrogen fixers, deep tap-rooted nutrient accumulators, designing complex what's called guilds, which is a symbiotic host of varying plants. So a permaculture garden is going to be focused more on natural inputs and offloading all the work to nature. So there's a large focus on creating your own compost. That can be with a compost pile, a worm bin, bokashi, any way to cycle nutrients in plants into more fertility. Now, because permaculture is a nature mimicry design science, we tend to focus on lots of perennials and long-lived plants in order to provide our food abundance. So we'll always try to look for perennial versions of everything that goes on our plate, to the extent practical. Now, the side benefit of working largely with perennials is that they get really strong established root bases. They tend to be more drought resistant. And combined with the way that we mulch our lands, a permaculture food forest slowly over time becomes a zero work system. You can prune your fruit trees if you want, but for the most part, we're creating a forest, and the eventual end goal is actually to remove the requirement of any human inputs or labor into the system. Now, there's always going to be things that you can do if you're really passionate about your food forest in order to maximize its efficiency, but really, there are food forests which have been abandoned for hundreds of years that are still productive today. That's the goal of a permaculture food forest. Another way that your garden is going to look a little different in a permaculture setup is just the sheer density of plants and the sheer diversity of plants. Both of these things are tremendously important for not only the soil food web of life, but the above ground web of life, the insect biome. The closer our plants are together, the more likely it is that a predator will have hiding spaces to attack pests. And the closer our plants are planted together, the less sun is reaching the ground level. The less sun that's reaching the ground level, the less evaporation that's happening, so the more water we're storing, and water is really the source of all life on Earth. So if we can store water, we're really gonna boost our system. We're also gonna have cooler soil temps. And cooler soil temps is gonna lead to less weed germination. Combined with a thick mulch, there's almost no weeding required in a permaculture food forest. There'll be stuff that blows in, but the ideal goal is to plant so densely that weeds simply cannot outcompete the perennial strong plants that are already established. So piecing and pulling that all together, what's the difference between a permaculture food forest, a permaculture garden, and a traditional garden? It's really abundance and work. A permaculture food forest and garden should be no work. A normal garden is a ton of work. A normal garden, we have to work very hard for a little bit amount of food. You know, that $150 tomato that's a bit of a joke in the gardening world. A permaculture food forest, if seeds accidentally drop anywhere, the nutrient cycling and fertility of the land is actually so boosted that it's almost impossible to stop a permaculture food forest from continuing to grow. So what's the lifestyle thing? The lifestyle in the garden for a permaculture practitioner is really going to be one of foraging. So we're setting up a food forest in order to turn our land into an area where we forage. We're almost going back to the cave person days, where we collected our favorite plants and planted them along riverbeds that we would hunt. And in this way, we would get apples and nuts, and we would collect food while we're out walking around. That's kind of what we're going for in a permaculture food forest, a low maintenance, high forage, walk around my land eating food type of lifestyle. It's also legacy building. A permaculture food forest will long outlive its builder and creator. And that's kind of the goal, and that is the legacy part of my channel name. Because permaculture is just a term to describe something that humans have kind of always done up until the last little bit of human existence, the last maybe couple centuries. We've really lived in harmony with the planet traditionally. We've lost our way, but it doesn't mean we can't get back there. And that's what a permaculture food forest is kind of all about. That's what permaculture is all about. More on the lifestyle design aspect. Because permaculture has at its core ethics, care for the planet, care for people, and returning the surplus. That really means that we need to take that into every aspect of our lives. And it wasn't until I started really getting into permaculture and really started looking at my own life that I very quickly realized that I was part of the problem. So what does that look like in practical terms? It means trying to cut down on the waste, trying to cut down on your footprint of resource depletion and ecological destruction. Try to give back to nature as much as you can in order to help restore that. And the cold, hard truth is that for 99% of people, even the hardcore permaculture practitioners, we're never going to get there. We're really looking about doing our best and not being perfect. That's just the way that it is. On that topic, I made a video recently, which I'll link here, which is ways that you can actually contribute positively to the planet. Ways that you can change your lifestyle in order to make the most drastic assistance to the ecological destruction and the extinction event that we currently find ourselves in. So permaculture isn't really a destination. It's not a goal. You don't try to get yourself to having a permaculture garden, having a permaculture-based lifestyle. Permaculture is just really the journey. It's the set of tools that we use to guide all of our decisions. And we just try our best every single day in order to maximize how regeneratively we're living on this planet. We're already inside the 6th major extinction event in the history of the planet Earth. We've jumped off the cliff. We're falling down, we're going to hit the ground. There's no way around it. We've caused too much destruction in order for us to actually be able to reverse this. Permaculture to me is the parachute. But what does it look like for you? Probably just some mulch, some fruit trees, some herbs, and getting a little bit more of your food 20 feet from your front door instead of 2,000 kilometers from a province or state or country somewhere else. One aspect that I really enjoy about a food forest is that it's just cooler than a grass lawn. I mean, what would you rather have? Something like this behind me or a grass lawn? And I'll tell you right up front, this was a lot of work to put in, but now that I've put it in, it's way less work than my front lawn is. So once you create something like this, it's permanent, it's in your life. It will actually evolve and grow and change. And every single day is this little gift and present of joy that you get to go outside and see what's new in your food forest. I'm out here every single day, and a tree doesn't bud or flower or leaf out and a new plant doesn't show up without me noticing it. I'm out here so often, and it's just such good food for the soul. I just absolutely love the fact that I started this. It's changed my entire life to the point where I decided to pick up my camera and start shooting videos about plants. And everybody laughed at me. Who's gonna watch a video about plants? But there's just something about nature that just connects us all together. And I think when you're here and when you see something like this and when you bring it into your life and you see the wildlife move in, you see the land change, it just hits you and you become addicted, and then you just keep planting plants. I think planting is something that we start in life and we never truly end. Once we start planting, we're planting for the rest of our lives. So start your permaculture food forest today. Join me and many others in this little community, in this family of people who actually give a crap about the planet that they live in and the legacy that they're leaving behind for their grandkids. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next video.